Happy Wednesday! Are you ready for a Route to Net Zero event series today? We have a pretty cool lineup today featuring 6 powerful keynote speakers and 15 expert panelists. The questions are carbon footprinting and net zero target setting, net zero targets and ambitious commitments, making this work for Asian financial institutions, demonstrating action and providing transparency on the route to net zero. So please join the conversation, hashtag Route to Net Zero and Net Zero Asia. We also have an opening poll that has just started, which is where are you joining us from today? So submit your answers and I'll read out the results as we go on. One more housekeeping message to the live viewers. You'll find the chat on the right-hand side, and there are some useful resources you can click on to find out more as well. We're going to kick things off with Tom Delay CBE, Chief Executive of Carbon Trust. Tom was appointed as the first Chief Executive of the Carbon Trust in 2001. Since then, he has grown the company to become a world leader, advising businesses and governments on carbon emissions reduction and the development of low carbon technologies, markets, and businesses. More recently, he has taken the company's unique capabilities to China, Singapore, Mexico, Brazil, and South Africa, extending its mission to accelerate the move to a sustainable, low-carbon future. A chartered engineer, Tom worked for Shell for 16 years in commercial and operations roles in Africa and Europe before moving into management consultancy with McKinsey and A.T. Kearney. Tom is a member of the UK Energy Research Partnership and advisory boards of the Centre for Climate Finance and Investment at Imperial College London and the Global CO2 Initiative at the University of Michigan. He studied mechanical engineering at the University of Southampton and completed an MBA at INSEAD Fontainebleau. One of the very important things you should know about him is that in 2018, he was awarded a CBE by the Queen for services to sustainability in business. Welcome, Tom.
Good afternoon. I'm Tom Delay. I'm delighted to welcome you all to Route to Net Zero Asia. This is the first of 5 one-day events that we are running around the world over the next few weeks, really focusing on net zero, the challenges of getting to net zero, and what in different geographies needs to happen for that to become a reality very soon. I'm going to introduce the Carbon Trust very briefly, and then I'm going to get on to net zero, what its challenges represent, why it's so important, and why hopefully you will find today's event really useful. So the Carbon Trust has been around for 20 years now. Its mission is to accelerate the move to a decarbonised future. Quite straightforward, quite focused. That's what we do. We have over 300 staff and colleagues around the world with offices in Beijing, Singapore, South Africa, the Netherlands, London, Mexico City, and a presence in both DC and Brazil. So we are scattered and we work on a global basis with our clients and partners. And we're very proud of our ability to do that, bringing expertise to their challenges and helping them succeed as they move towards net zero. Literally, over the last few months, we have found ourselves working with hundreds of governments, businesses, financial institutions, helping them set the pathways to net zero, develop strategies, and set targets. That is the biggest single activity that the Carbon Trust is doing today, along with a great deal of work on innovation and technology and market development. So that's all I'm going to say at the moment about the Carbon Trust. Let's move on to net zero. It is the global ambition from the Paris Agreement forward, with the added impetus of businesses, financial institutions and governments being aligned towards science-based outcomes, with Greta really bringing to the fore the voice of young people around the world today, with momentum building inexorably for change and challenge within this sector that we're seeing. We're at that point where net zero is what everybody's aiming to get towards, but we recognize it's very challenging. And it's challenging for a number of reasons. It's huge. The scale of what we're trying to achieve is huge. And the pace is determined not by the markets. It's determined by the science. It's determined by the planet and the damage that we're causing to the planet. So how do we think about it? Well, let's start with the economy of today. The economy of today was built around resources, fossil fuels, minerals, land, water, being abundant and cheap. And as a result, the use of those natural resources has largely been wasteful. Now, that does create opportunities. We can do things better, as it were, next time round. To give a sense of scale, today's global economy is so big. The growth of economic activity around the world over the next 30 years out to 2050 and just beyond will be broadly the same again. So the global economy in 2050 will be about twice what it is today. And the growth will be particularly acute in Asia. It'll be growing as a region about 1.5 times faster, most people would forecast, than the rest of the world. So Asia is particularly important, and that's why I'm delighted that this event is starting in Asia, because that's really where it has to start. There is also, though, a very real opportunity because Asia as a region is growing disproportionately fast. We know how hard it is to decarbonize mature developed economies. It's hard because many of the assets are already in place. You're looking to redevelop and invest in things when the alternative is already functioning. In a growing economy, we're finding it is easier to find opportunities to do the right things. And therefore, with our clients and partners, we are looking to make business sense of climate change in everything that we do. So the pace is as important as the scale because it's not determined by the markets. So we are looking to accelerate market activity. That's what everything from policymakers and governments through financial institutions to businesses are trying to do. It's accelerate what would happen normally in an orderly fashion, but doing it in a way that is still orderly and focused and delivers an outcome at low cost that captures the opportunities and minimizes the risks associated with dealing with climate change and the worst impacts. So net zero is an enormously challenging and exciting activity to be involved with. We are incredibly excited to be working and growing our activity as the Carbon Trust in Asia, both in China, in Southeast Asia, and in other parts of Asia that we work with out of London and our international offices. We are really excited to be in the region. And that's why I am truly delighted that this should be the first of our global events. So look, COP26 is coming up in a couple of weeks' time. Signal your commitment if you can. Join the UNFCCC's Route to Zero campaign. Signal that commitment. The world is looking for alignment, excitement, and motivation, and we all have a part to play in doing that. Lastly, it just comes down to me to thank a few people. Firstly, I would like to thank all of the speakers and panelists that we have today joining this afternoon for what should be a terrific event. We are incredibly grateful for your time joining us. It shows how seriously you take this agenda, and we hope to play our part as well. And lastly, I'd like to thank everybody who is joining this in the audience, you who are listening to what we are here, hopefully trying to illuminate, explain, challenge. Thank you for your time. We really recognize it. We've tried to make these events really focused, really short, but really impactful. Do please give us feedback. If we've done that well, if we've done it in a way we could have done better, it's all good feedback that we will take on board. So look, thank you very much. That's all I've got to say. Let me hand over now to the event proper. Thank you very much indeed. Bye-bye now.
Next, we welcome Grace Fu, Minister for Sustainability and the Environment, Singapore. Ms. Grace Fu began her career in 1985 with the Overseas Union Bank and later with the Hopper Group in the areas of corporate planning, financial controls, and business development. Ms. Fu joined the PSA Corporation in 1995 and took on different responsibilities in finance and marketing. She held the position of Chief Executive Officer, PSA Southeast Asia and Japan, where she was responsible for the business performance of PSA's flagship terminals in Singapore, Thailand, Brunei, and Japan. She was appointed Singapore's Minister for Sustainability and the Environment in July 2020, having previously held the roles of Minister for Culture, Community and Youth, and Leader of the House. She was also involved in a number of committees, including as co-chair of the Singapore-Zhejiang Economic and Trade Council, the Sino-Singapore Tianjin Eco-City Joint Steering Council, the Ministerial Committee on Aging, and the Economic Strategies Committee. She enjoys an active lifestyle, which includes running, yoga, and hiking. She's married with 3 sons. Welcome, Grace.
Mr. Tom Delay, Chief Executive of the Carbon Trust, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Greetings from Singapore. I thank the Carbon Trust for inviting me to deliver the opening address for the Route to Net Zero Asia event. The Paris Agreement was adopted in 2015. It was a milestone moment, bringing 192 countries into a common cause to tackle climate change with common but differentiated responsibilities and financial support for developing countries to address climate change. The central objective of the Paris Agreement is to hold global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius and pursue efforts to limit it to 1.5 degrees Celsius. The 2018 IPCC Special Report on 1.5 degrees C went on to establish that to keep the 1.5 temperature goal alive, global net CO2 emissions need to fall by 45% by 2030 and reach net zero around 2050. Since then, 139 parties have come forward with their new or updated Nationally Determined Contribution, or NDC. We have seen the net zero movement gathering momentum across the globe, including in Asia. Japan and South Korea have pledged to achieve net zero or carbon neutrality by 2050, and China and Indonesia by 2060. The Climate Ambition Alliance has brought together countries that will work towards achieving net zero emissions by 2050. Singapore contributes 0.1% of global emissions, and as a small, densely populated country of about 700 square kilometers, we have very limited options in renewable energy. Nevertheless, we will play our full part to support global climate action. Last year, we submitted our enhanced 2030 NDC and LEDS, Long-Term Low Emissions Development Strategy, under the Paris Agreement, one of the first countries to do so. We target to peak our emissions at 65 million tons of CO2 equivalent around 2030, and to halve that by 2050 with a view to achieving net zero emissions. These are ambitious plans given our constraints, and we have started taking concrete actions to realize these goals. Earlier this year, we launched the Singapore Green Plan 2030, our roadmap towards sustainable development and net zero ambitions. The Green Plan commits us to ambitious targets over the next 10 years. It covers 5 pillars: city in nature, sustainable living, energy reset, green economy, and resilient future, with green government and green citizenry as key enablers. It is a whole-of-nation plan involving businesses, communities, students, and households to drive concrete and collective action on the ground. The Singapore government is taking the lead with our Green After SG initiative. We aim to peak the public sector's emissions earlier than the national target, at around 2025. This will require us to use less energy, water, and resources by improving our operations and switching to cleaner energy. We will use our procurement budget to activate the transformation of our private sector. Private enterprises and other non-state actors play a critical role in the fight against climate change. Amid the global pandemic, there is momentum in the private sector on climate action, with increasing number of shareholder actions and corporate pledges with ambitious targets. Of note, membership of the UN Race to Zero campaign has grown exponentially, with more than 6,000 regions, cities, businesses, and investors on board. Among them are notable Singapore companies such as City Developments Limited, Olam International, Singtel, and the Singapore Exchange. As the world's largest net zero coalition, the Race to Zero campaign demonstrates the role of non-state actors in climate action clearly to governments and exemplifies that the transition to a decarbonized economy is gathering pace. The private sector can certainly lead, support, and work with governments to galvanize climate action. First, companies should set climate targets and enhance them over time. Companies should see climate action and sustainability as a long-term capability to mitigate risks, seize new opportunities, and gain competitive advantage in a low-carbon future. The carbon measurement and target setting frameworks offered by organizations such as the Carbon Trust can help companies set meaningful, actionable, and science-based targets and differentiate them from their competitors. In contrast, companies that choose inaction will increasingly be confronted by compliance risks, shrinking demand, stranded assets, and limited financing options. To support companies in building capability in sustainability, a new enterprise sustainability program was recently launched in Singapore. Through this program, Enterprise Singapore will also work closely with industry partners to strengthen industry-specific capabilities and create a vibrant sustainability ecosystem in Singapore. Second, companies must translate targets into concrete implementation plans. Companies should apply carbon pricing in their business decisions. This will allow companies to factor in the cost of greenhouse gas emissions and shift towards low-carbon investments and technologies. In 2019, Singapore became the first country in Southeast Asia to introduce a carbon tax. The revenue from the carbon tax will be spent on projects, research, and innovation that will help reduce emissions, and we are prepared to spend even more in the first 5 years. We are sharing the early risks with the private sector by co-funding and co-creating solutions through pilot projects, new technologies, and efficiency improvement programs. We are reviewing our carbon tax level and trajectory to spur the reduction of our carbon footprint, promote industry innovation, and catalyze green growth. Third, companies should invest in R&D and seek partnerships with the government and academia and pilot technologies that the new green economy require. Last year, Keppel Data Centres, Chevron, Penn United, and Sabana Jurong, with the support of our National Research Foundation, signed an MOU to accelerate the development of carbon capture, utilization, and storage (CCUS) technologies, such as technologies that utilize cryogens, membranes, and hydrogen. More recently, Shell signed a $4.6 million research agreement with the National University of Singapore, with support from NRF and the Economic Development Board, to jointly develop processes to use CO2 in the production of ethanol and N-propanol for cleaner use. ExxonMobil announced that it was planning a CCS hub to capture, transport, and permanently store CO2 generated by industrial activity in the Asia-Pacific region. Fourth, as more companies adopt net zero goals, the call for transparency on interim targets and how companies plan to achieve them will grow. It is important for companies to provide high-quality and reliable climate-related financial disclosures to investors and other stakeholders, and to address concerns over greenwashing. In Singapore, a private sector-led task force, the Green Finance Industry Task Force, or GFIT, has put together an implementation guide on climate-related disclosures for financial institutions, aligning best practices with the recommendations of the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, TCFD. It aims to enhance the quality of climate disclosures and facilitate more consistent and comparable disclosures across the industry. The SGX has also issued for consultation a proposed roadmap to introduce mandatory climate-related financial disclosures consistent with TCFD recommendations for listed entities, starting with those in sectors most exposed to climate-related risks. Fifth, for companies in hard-to-abate sectors, access to the international carbon market enables them to step up their mitigation efforts in an increasingly carbon-constrained world. Robust and well-functioning carbon markets will mobilize financial resources for emissions reduction and removal projects that generate high-quality carbon offsets, for which the region holds tremendous potential. Southeast Asia is home to 200 million hectares of terrestrial forests and the world's largest stock of blue carbon ecosystems that can significantly enhance carbon sequestration efforts if given the capital. Companies should build capabilities in carbon markets to seek out high-quality carbon credits and make credible climate claims. Singapore is growing our ecosystems of services in carbon markets and carbon management, and partnering stakeholders, including those in the region, in the development of a high-quality carbon market. We are building our expertise in project development, financing, and trading. DBS, SGX, Standard Chartered Bank, and Temasek will be launching the Climate Impact X, a global carbon exchange and marketplace for high-quality carbon offsets generated through, initially, nature-based solutions that could yield other co-benefits like biodiversity preservation and coastal adaptation. 6. More private capital needs to be mobilized to complement public financing in the transition to net zero. There is an estimated $7 trillion needed for sustainable infrastructure each year until 2030, and public capital alone will not be enough to meet these financing needs. The private sector can participate in innovative financing solutions, such as blended finance, to crowd in capital. The Monetary Authority of Singapore, MAS, has also put in place grant schemes to defray the cost of obtaining external reviews for green and sustainability-linked loans and bonds to support companies in accessing green and sustainable financing in Singapore and the region. In addition, MAS's Green and Sustainability-Linked Loan Grant Scheme also encourages banks to develop green and sustainability-linked loan frameworks to make such financing more accessible to small and medium-sized enterprises, the lifeblood of many economies in Asia. Allow me to conclude. Climate change is an existential challenge facing our generation, with widespread and lasting impact to lives and livelihoods. Collective and urgent action on a global scale is required. In our journey towards a low-carbon future, Singapore is keen to partner and collaborate internationally for new technologies and solutions. We look forward to forging meaningful collaborations with the Carbon Trust in partnership with the UK in our joint efforts to mobilize stronger climate action in the region. I wish you all a fruitful event. Thank you.